Hello everyone and welcome to this webinar where we will talk about domains and trademarks and practical examples of all you need to know. I'm so happy to see that there are so many joining us here today. There's still some people coming in, so I will keep on talking a couple of seconds more. This will all be recorded, so everyone will get their example of the recording and also the PPT afterwards. So tomorrow I think it will be sent out. I will also remind you guys that this is an interactive webinar, so please send in any questions you have in the question box on your screen, and we will try to answer all the questions in this webinar. But if we run out of time, you will all get your answers tomorrow. Everyone will be getting answers to their emails. So I think that was about the housekeeping. Let's move on to the agenda. So first we will have a short introduction of the panelists and today's topic. After that we will have an introduction of AVA and DotKeeper. Then we will move on to today's topic, which is all you need to know about domain names and trademarks. And this will be done, as I said, in a Q&A manner. So please send in your questions and we will answer them all. At the end, we will wrap up with a Q&A, so you will get a short list of what you think, like things you really should think of when working with your brand strategy. Well, I think it's time to move on to our panelists. You have already met me, and my name is Johansson. I work as head of AVA Innovation, and I will be moderating this webinar. With me today, I have Pernilla and Isaac. And please, Pernilla, join me on stage. Tell us a little bit about yourself and your background.
Yes, hello everyone. My name is Pernilla Brocker. I work as a business development manager at DotKeeper. I started my journey in this business as both trademark and domain consultant for 4 years, but these last 2 years I have been focusing on domain names.
All right, thank you very much, Pernilla. I'm so happy to have you here. With us today, we also have Isaac Karen. Please, Isaac, join us on stage. Tell us a little bit about yourself and your background.
Well, good afternoon. Yes, my name is Isaac Karen, and I've been working about 20 years in the field, a lot with domain names and trademark-related issues. And I'm currently working from the AVA West office as the head of the legal department.
Yes, Isaac. And when you say AVA West, I know this is in Sweden. So
that's true. Yep.
Yeah, I'm so happy to have you here. I know you have loads of knowledge in this area, and I'm so excited to hear what questions we have and how you will be answering them. So I will just say a short goodbye to you guys and move on to a short presentation of AVA DotKeeper before you can join me once again. So if you haven't met with AVA or DotKeeper, AVA is an intellectual IP law firm. We're, I would say, international IP law firm. We have presence in both Europe and Asia, but we work with clients from all over the world. And since 2018, the leading domain name expert, DotKeeper, joined AVA Group. And for those of you who don't know, I would say that some companies work with specific IP-related questions, but AVA, and especially with our collaboration with DotKeeper, I would say we're a one-stop shop because we handle all aspects of IP rights and digital assets. So if you have any questions regarding anything that has to do with intellectual property or intellectual assets, it could be trademarks, patents, domains, or anything else that's not really protectable but important. Remember that you can always talk to us, any one of us in this webinar, or anyone that you have contact with in our firm. So finally, it's time to move on to today's topic. And as I said, it's a Q&A based topic. So please remember to put your questions in the question box, so we will have a relevant webinar for you. All right, I will start with the first question, and I think it's for you, Isaac. I will take away this Q&A very soon, but I will take the question first. So, Why is the combination of registering trademarks and domain names a good strategy for protecting your brand? Isaac, what's your take on this?
Yeah. Well, first of all, having a registered trademark is always a strong foundation on which you can build the protection of your trademark. So it really will give you a strong position in acting against infringements in the jurisdictions you have covered. That's the basis. However, the more you're dependent on your online presence, the more you need also to pay attention to domain names, because they don't come along automatically. So, and the function of a domain name is so fundamental for your online presence. So having a good domain name, which is as close to your trademark as possible, will strengthen your online presence and protect your brand. And of course, the opposite is also true. Namely, having someone else using a domain name which is close or identical to your mark will weaken your trademark.
I would also like to point out that a domain name registration will not give you the trademark right by sea. But since the domain name is unique, it will block others from using the exact domain name. But it's also something we need to discuss also is that, but since if someone registers a similar or confusingly similar domain name, there are something you need to know is that domain names are registered by first to come, first to serve, which is good to know if someone has taken or registered a similar or confusing domain name. You will normally need a trademark right in order to argue your case in a domain name dispute.
Yeah.
All right.
But also, we would like to add something more. We usually say this to the clients, instead of getting this dispute resolution, it's always more cost efficient to register the domain names you need, rather than reactively hope to reclaim important domain names in later stage.
And what about if you already have a trademark registered? Does that give you the right to the domain name?
Well, we have to be boring here and said it depends. There are some different rules depending on which top level we are talking about. But if you look at .se and .com, they have some basic principle which gives the trademark holders certain rights. For example, they need a trademark right. The counterpart has no legit interest in the domain, and also if it's registered or used in bad faith.
Yeah, I mean that's true. I mean, if you are going to use your trademark to reclaim a domain name, you need to have all these criteria met. So that's true. Yeah.
All right, and a question here from Anders. So, if I have a business and a domain name, can someone else register this a trademark and then take my domain name away from me?
For me? Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
For you,
well, again, yeah. You know, I have such competent colleagues, so we can both answer all these questions, I think.
You're so humble.
Well, you know, it's the truth. But anyway, most domain names will give a domain name registrant the right to keep a domain name if they have a legitimate interest in it. So it's not that you can keep any name, of course, but if we take .com, for instance, if you want to reclaim a domain name, you must prove that the domain name was registered in bad faith. Why it would really be hard for a complainant that comes with a later registration to prove the bad faith situation. And if the domain name was registered by someone with no knowledge of the trademark holder at the time, it's really, really hard. And you have to prove this for .com. There are different rules for other top-level domains, but if we look at .com, that's the basis. And let's say, for instance, that the circumstances are less clear, that the registration and use of the domain name started very recently, and that the use and preparation for use is limited. Then, for instance, for .se, it may actually give a holder of a later trademark a right to argue that the domain name has been used later on in bad faith, and that there is no real there is no real legitimate interest on the part of the domain name registrant. And yes, in that case, it can be that a later trademark can actually take away a domain name. but of course not in a situation where somebody has a bona fide interest or use it in another context. Remember, however, that these principles, they guide only the domain name itself. It doesn't really affect a situation where you have a trademark right which cannot be contested really, and because that will stop any use that is covered by the trademark. So even if you cannot take the domain name away from the counterpart, in some instances, you may still be able to stop them from using it in a way that infringes your trademark. So that's very important. So having the trademark again is really fundamental. And for those who have a domain name and wish to make sure that they are not boxed in, it's important for them to register a right, a trademark, or trade name that really gives them some sort of right to stand on not to be boxed in by others. And consider, for instance, if you are unable to show, if you haven't registered your right and you're unable to show an unregistered right in Sweden, then other parties can come in and register trademarks, which could block you. Maybe not if you have a local right or something that you can hang on to where you are if you're a small company. But if you intend to expand, I mean, just that if they file an EU trademark and you can't really show bad faith on their part, then of course that can be a very problematic situation for you when you expand. So again, the combination here is important. And yeah, I mean, I'm thinking also of the value of a domain name. If you have a trademark registered and somebody else has a domain name, of course, the objective value of that domain name may actually be lower for them, depending on their intentions with that domain name. So let's say, for instance, that you have a trademark and they've registered a domain name before with speculative reasons. Then, of course, the trademark can be used to strengthen your position in a negotiation if you want to buy that domain name, if you know that you can't really claim it from via legal measures. And they know that since you have the trademark that they can't really touch, then they know that the value for other parties will be lower, so they can't really get as much from it. So it will actually be helpful for you even if you need to buy the domain name. Yeah.
That's a great answer. We actually got another question on at least what I make sense to be on this topic. It's from Fredrika, and it's: in which order shall I register trademarks and domain names, and what should I prioritize?
Right. Well,
Isaac.
Yeah, me again? You think so?
Yeah,
well,
please.
anyway, well, it's really, I mean, domain names are so easily registered. So, for instance, .coms, I would definitely register .coms as soon as I find out that I want a certain .com, not wait for anything. And today, with the hidden data, nobody will really see who's registering it anyway. So there's no really reason to wait for that. In some, of course, top-level domains, there are still, open registries, and you can wait because there are not so many people actually register domain names there anyway. So you can wait. But for .com, just do it right away. And then, of course, the next step is, of course, to file the trademark application. If it's a big-scale rollout, then you should probably try to make it happen simultaneously, probably on the same day if you can, at least to get a basic trademark registration in on the same day as the domain name will be helpful for you, and we can do that for you. And one has to remember that when you file a trademark, especially in the big trademark registries like the EU, for instance, the application will be visible very, very quickly in the database. And we know for a fact that these are automatically monitored. These are monitored by automatic robots, and they actually control these against domain names, the trademarks. And we have seen this time and time again, that domain names are automatically registered as soon as the trademarks come in, if they are available. So there's really, really good reasons to make sure that .coms especially are registered before you actually file the trademark.
I do have another input here. Since I've been working with a lot of scale-up companies, when it comes to country domains, they should not be ignored. I know .com is huge. It is the largest top-level domain we have today, but the country domains are as important too, because if you have a plan to expand in 3 to 5 years, they should be in the phase 1. And also we have a problem with some country domains, because if, for example, Germany, if I know I'm going to expand in Germany in 2 years and I'm filing a trademark and have not registered a German country domain, it will definitely get registered by another. And the problem with Germany, like Russia and China, is that there is no easy dispute resolution to get these domains back, which gives the owner a huge problem. Then you have to go through acquisition, which is very expensive. So I want to give this input that don't forget the country domains as well, even though, especially if you're going to use them.
All right,
Yeah.
we actually got a question just on this topic. It's from Angie, and is, would you recommend registrating domain names for all trademarks under a company as a defensive measure?
What do you think?
I can answer to that.
Yes or no?
I think I know he's asking about. We used to, when you're doing this kind of name protection strategy and you are including domain names, we used to categorize them main brand, sub brand, and then campaign SEO domains, which means they have different kind of priorities. If it's your main brands, all the main brands should have a user perspective when you register domains. If you, especially like I said with Germany, the country domains, you know you're going to have a presence, a digital presence in Norway. In Norway, they use .com, yeah, but not as much as we do with .com in Sweden. They use .no, which means you need to cover that. But also with main brands, you need to have that proactive safety perspective, which means misspellings on your main brands is very important. If you look to the sub-brands, usually products, other campaigns, etc., you're using in your marketing strategy, well, register the exact wording, but using the country domains you are, or the markets you are supposed to use the sub-brand on, and of course .com. I hope that answers.
It's all about strategy.
Yeah, that's true. But also, I want to add something that, you know, it depends on your brand as well. If your brand is, depending on how good the distinctiveness is of your brand, it will really make a difference which, first of all, which domain names you can get. And if you have a solid distinctiveness to your mark and the domain names are free, that's actually an opportunity to create a good namespace for yourself in your marketing, and that will actually look really nice when you send out your materials, when you have your website. You can use the different flags and different country codes, etc. It will actually make a good impression on the market. And have to remember, each country are very, very loyal to their own top-level domain. So one has to think from each country's perspective and not from the Swedish perspective or other larger geographic origins.
Yeah, especially so when it comes to Europe and Asia.
Yeah, it's all about strategy, and that's why it's good to talk about these topics, because everyone has a different context and also different business agenda. And as you say, for some it can have a really high value. As I know, working with startup scale-ups, having everything in place can build a more trustworthy case and so on. So it all depends on the context, right? And the strategy you want to push forward. Well, up to the next question then. So, are there any good ways of finding out if anyone is using my brand online?
Yeah, I mean, there has been a number of different ways of doing that for a long time. I mean, I would say there are different ways of doing it. There are, of course, really comprehensive, pretty expensive, but really efficient online brand monitoring services today. A number of providers have these today, and they are extremely competent, these systems. I mean, they cover most aspects of the internet. I mean, online marketplaces, social networks, websites of different sorts, and it will give you a great understanding. they are really good. They require some of course commitment and resources, and some costs are involved. So if you don't feel that that's where you have your priorities, that you want to really work with that, or that you need to work with that, yeah, I mean, it depends on your situation. Yeah.
I would like to say this: if you are unsure or wish to get a feel about how your mark is used, a very cost-efficient way is to start with a domain name monitoring, because the service will find the most problematic domain name registrations, and also many problematic domains may give you an indicate the amount of issues that you are facing online. But if you already know that you have a problem online with your brand, we will definitely recommend you to take a wider monitoring, like online brand protection. And on the subject, actually, we do have a offer right now, which containing that you can sign up for initial scan, which gives you a report of some domain registrations containing your brand name. And I am very sure that we will send you this offer and information about it in the upcoming letter after the webinar.
That's great, Pernilla.
I want to add, though. I want to add something because one has to remember that the trademark monitoring that is important. It's the combination here that really gives you a good understanding of the market, because and this is the traditional trademark watch services that are important. I mean, one has to remember that many trademark authorities do not review applications and compare them to earlier rights. So it's up to you to actually monitor and make sure that no other trademarks come in and start competing with you on your mark. That goes, for instance, for the EU IPO.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point there, Isaac, because I know we have joining us today some companies that are working very hard with their patent strategy, and there's a very different process there, where you can't really get a patent if there was someone else before you, while with the trademarks it's very, at least I was almost shocked when I heard this my first time, that something that you registered, that the person or the company needed to watch themselves about that, or work with Ava.Keeper, and we can take care of everything for you, of course. All right, so let's see what we have for next questions. So here's from Anna. What form of infringements do you need to take action on? Should you react to everything? Which ones can be less serious?
I can start with the domain registrations. If a domain name is interfering in your business, you should act. But there are domain registrations that could just contain your name and which don't have a big impact, then you may be better to choose to wait. But just 3 examples: if a competitor is using your domain name, yes, act. Length farm, yeah, it doesn't have that big impact on the brand. And when it comes to phishing and frauds, absolutely yes.
Yeah, I mean, with regards to the use of the brand online, that's very important when determining if to act. I mean, there can of course be, as you said, competitors and clear trademark infringement or misleading marketing or real copyright infringements that are related to domain names and posted on trademark websites with your domain names, your marks as domain names. And I mean, it can also be ads on marketplaces, social media accounts, and misleading accounts where you need to consider acting. And there are different ways to do that. I mean, there are also fan accounts. You may not want to act on those always, depending on how they are. But so those are not certain. And but of course, as Pernilla stated before, the phishing and the fraud situations are, of course, extremely disturbing.
Yeah, that's great. And even though, I mean, if you're like, if you're early in the business, it's obviously very important to get everything right from the beginning. But then if if there is an infringement, can maybe Isaac, can you run through like how does the process look like if you would help someone with an infringement case?
Well, it's really not that different from traditional legal advising. I mean, we will of course look at the situation and give our opinion on the possibilities of success. And then if we do find that it's possible to act and we recommend an action, then normally, depending on who the counterpart is as well and where they are situated, but we often send a cease and desist letter requesting and setting a deadline, and then of course if they don't adhere to it, then we proceed. And it really differs who you have on the other side. Sometimes if they are a professional domain name registrants, and they know what the drill, they know what's going on, so they may actually just come back to you and say, yeah, we'll give you the domain name. Or they're a bit cheeky and they know that it costs the client some money to go through with the process, and they will actually come back and get you to pay for it anyway, but just enough, not too much, yeah. Anyway,
and is the process the same for trademarks and domains, or is there anything that differs there?
Oh, I mean, it's just Pernilla mentioned that earlier. There are, as you know, then a number of what they call dispute resolution policies for domain names, and they offer us expedited process, which is much cheaper, much faster than normal court processes. And so it makes sense to use them. Again, it depends if you can or if you cannot, depending on the rules. But if you can, yes, they are efficient, and they tend to actually be beneficial for the trademark holder most of the times. And so that can be recommended. But we will of course, in each case, we will give our recommendation as to which road to take and which legal measure, if possible, to use.
Yeah, and hopefully there will be no more infringements. I'm sure that we can make money other ways. No, jokes aside. All right. So we have another question. It's a bit of it's not another topic, but it's in a different situation. So this is from Christian, Denmark. How long should I keep domain names and trademarks after I have stopped using them? Pillan, maybe. On this
yeah,
one.
I start with the domain name, just on good know-how, that if you have a domain name that is actively used for email or website, this should be retained. Because as soon as you close or don't renew your domain name, you will lose the website and the email function. And however, if you have other variants of domains, I mean, we were speaking before about misspellings, etc., that you maybe have registered for protective, they could be released. But it's also important to not forget to inactivate the domain when you stop using it, because you want to minimize the traffic there.
All right, and what does that mean actually? What does that mean, that you deactivate or?
Inactivate. As long as people can search on the domain name, it's active as in technically. People can get traffic streaming there. When you stop, you take away that technical, what we call DNS. It's just a registered park domain.
All right.
Yeah, once the domain name is not active, the traffic will of course disappear from it, and one has to remember that a lot of people monitor traffic and they want to have traffic and they use traffic to monetize. So a domain name doesn't matter what it's used for. If it has traffic, it can be monetized, meaning you can earn money on it. So if you just let a domain name that has been used out on the market directly from having been used for something, it will most definitely be registered by somebody else immediately and used for whatever you don't know. And for that reason, if you have domain names that have been used, just make sure to keep them for a while inactive, and that will make them less attractive to all the others out there on the market, and hopefully they won't really, even if they do register them when they come out, they will probably just let them go again, because it really won't be a business for them.
So it sounds very important for badwill. You don't really want anyone to do anything that that you can't stand for. So great. And another question on if I buy a company, can I always count on getting brands and domain names included?
But before you answer that, we answer that question, I just thought of something. When it comes to trademark, the question before was about trademarks as well, I think. And trademarks is, of course, they are only valid as long as you use them. There are use requirements from most countries, and it can, and one normal period is about 5 years. So if you're not using a trademark for the last 5 years, it can often be, be cancelled by somebody who has discovered this. So whenever you're up to renew trademarks, just make a assessment whether you are using it or not. And if you are not using it, you can pretty much not renew it when it comes. It's really not more difficult than that.
That's great, Isaac. So everything covered on domains and trademarks if you stop using them. So the next question then, if I buy a company, can I always count on getting brands and domain names included?
Well, I can answer on this one. No, you must check the rights before you do purchase. Domain names are a typical pitfall where you often miss the details when you're doing the due diligence process. For example, we see a lot of this in the business. It could be as simple that the company is not even legally owner of the domain name. It's a former employee. So yeah, check the domain names, hire an expert to mapping. Yeah, that's the best recommendation.
Yeah. It's very common actually.
Yeah, very common. And the effect about if you don't, if you're not legally owning a domain name and you transfer it to another company, they don't, is it just, by ownership, they don't own it, but it also will complicate because the new company that is buying the portfolio cannot use the domain name in certain ways.
There are so many different situations with this, so we can speak about this all day. Just be very meticulous when you control these things, because it can be very well and very correctly done, and no problem with that. But if you're not really careful with it, you can make some really bad mistakes.
That's great. And we have a question from Sten here. So if the purchase price for .com domain is too high, should I try to use arbitration to get it instead?
Can you repeat it?
If the purchase price for .com domain is too high, should I try to use arbitration to get it instead?
I'm not sure what he means with arbitration, if he means the domain name dispute resolution policies, I mean the legal measures, or if he means brokerage in this case. If we take the second situation with brokerage, this is something that we do, and specifically .keeper does a lot when it comes to actually acquiring domain names. And it tends to be that they usually do this without, of course, showing the client who is behind it, and trying to negotiate the best price possible. And because many domain names, even if they are listed at a very high price, they are usually sold at a lower price, I could say. So they are often grasping for much when they put their listed prices, one can say.
Yeah, we had a webinar on this early this spring, and I learned a lot about this, and like the effectiveness of using a company like .keeper to handle all conversations. Because obviously, if I would email from Katrin Johansson at Avan, no one would answer, or maybe at Avan, but maybe not from my private address or from any other address. So.
Yeah, there are many ways of doing that. But if we look at the other situation, if this question entails that he has a right and he wants to claim the domain name. That's of course a different process and a different situation. As we said earlier, then yes, we can look at it and find ways of putting pressure, even if we just want to negotiate the purchase. The trademark can actually be used to negotiate a better price, of course.
All right. So one last question before we wrap up. It's from Jeff, and he wonders, what trends do you see in the UDRP domain disputes globally, increasing or decreasing?
That's your expert area, Isaac.
Yeah, I'm thinking. I'm not really familiar with the latest numbers, but I can say that most of these cases have gone up and up and up over the years. I have to admit I haven't looked at the statistics the last year, but it's interesting to watch it, and you can see that there are a lot of cases there. One can make there's a bit of a difference also between the older domain name top-level domains, the .coms, for instance, compared to the new generic top-level domains. And I would say that they are far less interesting to the market. So people tend to not act on them as much as they act on the .coms. They are very much more interesting on the market.
All right, thank you very much, guys. So I will try to wrap it up here. Remember, I'm not the domain or trademark expert, but we have a slide here, and I see that both Isaac and Pernilla is laughing, so bear with me. I will run this through, and if you have anything to add, then just let me know. The checklist here is to protect both domain and trademark registrations on your brands in the existing markets and the ones that you want to enter within a 3 to 5 year period. So you really need to be strategic here, not letting things just be as it is. Take a moment and really think it through, and work with a company like Ava.Keeper or anyone who knows this in the business, because it will really be beneficial for you. The second one is that you should monitor both trademark applications and domain registrations. As mentioned before, this is nothing like the patent process when you have like a patent office who's really harsh and not letting anyone in. This is a totally different game. So you should have a traditional trademark monitoring and a domain name monitoring if you want to be on the safe side. And another one is that you should implement a strategy for infringement. And I think this is a good one, especially if you're a startup scale up. You need to know that the most important is to get everything right from the beginning, and then you need to have a strategy. Do you want to do infringements or not? When should we act and when should we not? So you don't get like emotionally attached and do something out of fear or whatever. We are all humans. And last but not least, develop a clear guidelines for processes when new brands are created or discontinued. I think all these tips and tricks here will be also added to when this will be sent out. So you know that you will have more information to the table when you get it in your email box tomorrow morning. Is there something that you would like to add there, Isaac or Pernilla?
No, not really. I think you summed it up pretty well.
Oh, yeah, it's great. I just wanted some applause from you guys. So, okay, as mentioned, I know that Isaac and Pernilla has added some more important bullets to this checklist, and you can use it when you work with your IP strategy or domain trademark strategy going forward.
Yeah, we'll add also a link to the statistics for some of the UDRP cases. There are actually very good statistics to watch with WIPO. So we'll add a link to that as well in the email we send out.
That's great. Thank you very much, Isaac. And Last but not least, I want to thank you all for joining us and that you've been so engaged and asking a lot of questions. We still have some questions unanswered, but you know that you will get your answers. Everyone will get their answers by tomorrow. And I usually say like this in our webinars, that now you have met with me and Pernilla and Isaac, you can consider us all to be your friends in IP, and especially Isaac and Pernilla. So make sure you connect with them on LinkedIn, and make sure you follow both Dotkeeper and Ava on LinkedIn and in other social channels, so you can see what we're up to, and also if there is anything else you want to ask or so, just feel free. We're here to help you. It's not just today and in this webinar, it's every day. It's our job to make your business flow in a great way. So thank you all for joining us, and hope you will have a great day today. It's in Sweden, at least the sun is shining. I hope it's like that in the rest of Europe, where we have some attendees. And thank you very much. Have a great day. Thank you for joining.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.